All right, let's see. And for some reason, I can't figure out how to disable my waiting room. I thought I had fixed it, but then, all right, let me swing this around so they can see everybody. Hey, good morning, everybody. Sorry, hang with me. Let me get everybody in. I don't know. I don't know. I've had struggles with Zoom. Here we go. Okay, sorry about that. I was struggling getting my Zoom to launch this morning, and of course, that's always my luck. Every time I think, you know what, it's gonna open up and it's gonna be perfect. It's gonna be great.
I have it.
Okay. All right. So I'm trying to, I don't know if I can get us all in here. So I've got Mr. McWilliams. So let me make sure I get everybody in really quick before we get started. I think I've got just about everybody. I think we're waiting on, oh, hold on. Got a couple more. Okay. All right. So really quick, I know we're waiting on just a few more cadets to make sure that I didn't miss everybody. Oh, here they are. They're coming in. They're joining. So first of all, this is a surprise for them because I didn't tell them who was coming. I just said that I'm going to throw this out there and we'll see who all is available to join us this morning. So this is a surprise, and I'm really excited because I knew that we had some rock stars that were joining us this morning. So, okay, all right. So hopefully everybody can hear me really well. Okay. All right, and we do have one or two. We got one TC2 joining us, and I don't know if we'll have any more. But first of all, thank everybody. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm writing her way. I'm sorry. But thank everybody for taking a few minutes to join us this morning. Thank you for your time. So I'm going to jump to my TCs, and if you guys just want to throw a question out there, if you have a specific person that you want to address with this question, go ahead. If not, we'll throw it out there, and whoever wants to offer words of wisdom. Let's see. Lily, will you give us a question, please?
Yeah. What was the most useful thing you learned in college about teaching?
How to do it. the first probably 2 or 3 weeks of teacher training, when you actually stand in front of the classroom and it's yours. You don't realize it's hard as it is, how much planning it takes, how much you have to think on your feet, because half the time the lesson plan doesn't work and you gotta wing it. I mean, it's hard to do, and trying to do it while as a teacher cadet is just key. Because if you try to walk in cold as a lateral entry teacher, oh man, I sweat to think of that. I mean, that is harsh. It's a hard job, and if you can get taught and teach yourself how to do it while you're in college, it's a heck of a lot easier than it is just walking in trying to figure it out on your own. That's probably the biggest thing I learned, really.
Yeah, and I can say that I didn't go to college to be a teacher, so I came in lateral entry. So going back to what Mr. McWilliams said, I literally had put my 2-week notice in. Like, I just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I'm doing. So I think once you figure out, kind of like what he was saying, just figuring out a plan and what works for you, and getting that experience up front is definitely helpful now.
Yeah, I would say, I took lots of classes in college and this and that, and they were great, but it was nothing that can really truly prepare you for being in the classroom until you're in the classroom. So like, student teaching is probably the best thing that you're going to experience in college, because then it's on you. You know, I mean, in your classes, you'll write a lesson plan that's, 2 pages long and it has all this stuff in it. But like when it comes down to it, that's not necessarily something you can do every single day. You need your bullet points. It's the organization is probably the best thing, how to begin, how to keep it running, how to review, how to, do practice and all that stuff, and then tie everything up at the end. It's just the student teaching part is really where whether or not this is for me or not.
Well, one thing I would just add to that, I think everything that these people have said is spot on. I guess the thing for me, I was a lateral entry teacher. So everything that Mr. McWilliams has said, Ms. Clemens has said, like I was that as well. Like I didn't get to do student teaching. My student teaching was the first day of school when I had that class. So I guess the thing that I would say to that is make sure you give yourself a lot of grace. Make sure you have plenty of patience. And something I wish someone would have told me is you need to make sure you have a good mentor. Some of these teachers that are on here are mentors, have been mentors currently. And I think we have a really good beginning teacher program, but there are some schools that don't. So with what Mr. Green was talking about, student teaching is going to be the closest thing when you go to college that prepares you for getting your own class. But, depending on where you take a job, your class could be totally different than the class that you student taught for and with. So having a mentor and being an advocate for yourself to stand up and make sure you get a good mentor is going to help you, because I will tell you, your first semester is going to be tough. You're going to question why you chose this profession, but you're also going to see what you're made of, and you're going to see how your resiliency will be tested, and you'll see a huge difference from first semester to second semester, just because you'll have a little experience up under you. Because at the end of the day, this is not student teaching anymore. The buck's going to stop with you. This is your class. And how you start day one is going to depend on how you finish up. So that's all I would add to that, is just really make sure that you've got patience. Don't judge the whole profession on the first week of school. And make sure you've got a good mentor, because that person who's investing in you is going to help you determine your whole opinion of what education is about. So just make sure you fight for a good one.
Awesome. Haley, how about you? Hit us with the next question.
Inspired you to be a teacher?
Oh, hold on. Say it again, Haley. I think it cut you off a little bit.
Who or what inspired you to be a teacher?
Well, it's a heck of a lot of fun, for one thing. I had some really good teachers in high school and in college, and they all really enjoyed what they're doing. They had a passion for their subject. They had a passion for the students and just people. And it takes a certain personality anyhow, I think. But I mean, I personally just really enjoyed it and enjoyed the good teachers that I had. And it was just something I wanted to try. I mean, you don't really know till you get into it. And you got to give yourself 2 or 3 years of grace when you're teaching to see whether or not you're good at it or not. Because it takes that long just for you to get a deep breath and start getting a handle on it. And, the learning curve on teaching is huge. It'll take you 8 or 10 years before you're decent at it. It's the only profession I've been in that I couldn't get a handle on in really 3 or 4 years. The learning curve is huge. You got to be 8 years into it really before you feel you're pretty good at it. But I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I got into it just because it looked like a lot of fun.
Mine was because I started out, I thought I was going to college for teaching, and then I had a professor say, hey, I think you should go into this. So it took me 9 years after graduating college to go into teaching, but my true inspiration was my business teacher. And I'm kind of older now, a lot older. So she's like the only person I actually remember the name of. So her name was Miss Nelson. So she was my business teacher.
I originally didn't go to college to be a teacher. I went in for psychology and human development and family. And teaching really wasn't one of the things I ever thought about doing until I started helping out at my kids' preschool. Ended up teaching there for over 10 years and realized how much I really loved it, and did it laterally as well. So it's not so much of who or what had got me into teaching. It was something that was a later in life decision. And I feel like it's kind of my calling. And so even though it wasn't something that I did when I was 19, I feel like, just starting over at the age that I am, that, I have a better concept of what it is that I want to do with my life.
Well, I went to college and spent 2 years doing all the generals and everything like that. And then, at the end of your second year, they sit you down, they say, okay, well, what are you going to do? And I don't know. So after a pretty lengthy discussion and them asking me what I was interested in and what I wasn't interested in, they said, well, you seem to be really interested in sports. Have you ever gotten into coaching? And I was like, well, I've done a little bit on the side and this and that. And then they said, well, if you coach, it might not be a bad idea to teach. And that was kind of how I got into it. There wasn't any one teacher or anything like that stood out or anything like that. I had great teachers or whatever, but it was just kind of like, hey, let's take a run at it and see kind of where it ends up.
I started teaching because of Rebecca. I built buses for a living and made really good money at it. And I would come home and just hear her talk about just the opportunity she had to make an impact in the lives of young people. And it was inspiring. And so I, went back to school and took the first job I could find. And I was driving an hour and 15 minutes from my driveway one way to go teach, and just fell in love with it. And I'll tell you this, you all are in this class because you have, you've got a connection to wanting to teach, or you think you want to be a teacher. I will tell you this, it's going to have to be an intrinsic drive that gets you there. Something like a story like Miss Clemens was talking about, or a calling like Miss Catherwood was talking about, or just something that you see a passion for, like Mr. McWilliams talking about. That intrinsic drive is what's going to get you through the tough times. So, I would encourage you to ask yourself, I think it's less about who inspired you and more about how can you inspire yourself or your connection to teaching. So, that's going to be big because like I said, that's what's going to get you through the tough times.
Ms. Brumley, what about you?
Yeah, so I became a teacher because when I was 6 and 7, that's what I always wanted to do, was be a teacher. So I went to college and I was a special ed major. And working in EC, it requires a whole lot of paperwork, and they were real upfront about that. And so it scared me, and I backed away from it. So although I started with special education, I ended up and I went with my degree was in sociology and psychology, and I graduated. I did social work for many years, and then I felt a calling to go into teaching, and so I went back into my love, what I originally intended to do, but I was in regular education for 10 years. And after the first 10 years, I decided I really, really would like to go to my true love, which was special education. So it was a definite calling. And I say that this is working as a teacher and working as an EC teacher is when I come to work every day, I get a lot of joy out of it, but I say it's also my mission field.
That's awesome. Mr. Robbins?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I started teaching because I believe in education mainly. I believe it's great for social justice, keeping people, giving people a leg up when they don't have a leg up, bringing people out of poverty, giving people education so they can make informed decisions as a society. That's my main reason for doing this. And I feel like people need to be educated in order to make good decisions in life.
That's great. Thank you. Daisha, throw a question at us.
What do you think makes a good teacher?
Well, you got to know your topic, first of all.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, if you don't know what you're talking about, it don't work. If you know your topic real well, you can actually stand there and teach, and you don't always have to be looking at the board, you know, looking at what's in front of you. You can take care of any questions that are thrown at you, and there's going to be a ton of them. The whole lesson plan just flows easier. You got to really love your topic. I mean, that'll always show through. It'll come shining out in your words, in your face when you're teaching. I think you have to have a real love for people. If you don't like people very much, it won't work very well. Kids will pick up on that real quick. Of course, you know, you got to be organized. You have to have a lesson plan put together. I mean, there's so many things that go into being a good teacher. I don't know if we could list them all. I don't know if anybody could. So I do believe some people have an innate ability to be a good teacher. I've seen too many people walk into this that were just good within 6 months, and others need to work at it. It took me 2 or 3 years to even have a clue, and you know, like I said before, it took, I don't know, 6 or 7 maybe before I felt like I was halfway decent. I mean, it's hard to go ahead and put it into terms, really, don't you think, Ms. Parker? I mean, you know a good teacher when you see it, but it's hard to describe. All the things I said are true, and yet there's something else that's there that I don't think anyone really can say what it is. It's a ton of work either way you look at it, but if you enjoy it, you'll stick with it. I don't know what you guys think.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Number one thing a good teacher is organization. Like being ready, prepared. Like, because you're gonna have, you know, depending on what level you teach, whether it's elementary, middle, or high, or whatever. You know, the middle and high, you got more students, but you're usually more specialized in your subject area. So you might be only teaching 1 or 2 preps as opposed to elementary school teaching pretty much everything. But being prepared, you know, making sure your lesson's ready, making sure your materials are ready, because the biggest issue that you're going to have in a classroom, especially as a first year, second year, third year teacher, is if you've got dead time, you're in trouble. Like if you have to have kids wait for you to go get something or wait for you to set something up, it's just going to kill you, because that's when your problems are. That's when your discipline problems start coming in and things like that. So to me, the first thing I look for in a good teacher is, are they prepared for that day? Do they have everything ready? You know, I mean, that's the bottom line to me.
How many of you handle when your best laid plans blow up and they don't go the way you thought they would? How many of you, the students, how many of you are able to handle that? Lily, you're very organized and methodical. When your plans don't go well and they blow up, what happens? Do you handle it or do you fall to pieces?
Well, I do my best not to stress out much about it and try and get everything under control so I can keep working.
Good. Welcome to teaching. Okay. That's my biggest advice. Everything everybody's told you is absolutely true, 100%. But you've got to be flexible as well, because you're going to have the greatest lesson in your head planned out, every minute planned to the detail. And guess what? right in the middle of your introduction, there's going to be a fire drill, right? How do you go from there, right? Or the computer, the internet, you're going to get kicked off the internet, you know, and you're not going to be able to show that intro video that you wanted to, you know, or give that quiz or Kahoot or whatever it is. How do you adjust? So like your best plans have to have backup plans, and you've got to be able to flip a switch on the fly, because the moment you crack, that's when they see that. Okay. And that dead time that Mr. Green's talking about can cost you a semester. Right. So I would just say be flexible and be willing to improvise, adapt, and overcome every single day.
I think another thing that's very important is relationships. I think besides all the things that were said, which I think are very important, I think having relationships with your students is very important. I try very hard to have good mutual respect in my class. You've got students that are coming from all different backgrounds and demographics, and some of those kids, that's the only love that they get is when they come to school. And so I think it's very important to kind of get to know them, understand what their backgrounds are, so that you can understand why they may be the way that they are. And I think that when you build up that mutual respect and relationship, that it runs your classroom a lot more smoothly, because your kids are willing to do things for you and listen to you because you have that relationship. And I think that's the first thing that I work on first day, is building those relationships, because that is what makes the rest of your year. Not only your organization, of course, all that stuff is very, very important, but I really work very hard on the relationships and getting to know each of my students.
All right, we're going to squeeze in our last couple of questions. Dalton, what was one of your questions?
One of mine was, is there anything that you wish you would know, like when you were a first-year teacher?
I wish I probably knew, you know, how much regular administration stuff you need to do. You know, how to sneak in your attendance while the kids are doing the bell ringer. And in some of these tough classes, how you actually look at your computer for 20 seconds before the kids start acting up because you're not paying attention to them. You know, how to keep your textbook organized to make sure they're not walking out the door. How to keep your rulers and your pencils and your pens organized, well, so they're not walking out the door or getting broke. You know, what are the protocols when the phone rings and you need to send a kid to the office or something? You know, how to write the note, how to have the kid write out the note, and all you need to do is sign it. You know, just the general administration stuff in running the classroom. I never realized that how important that stuff was. I mean, I knew my topic. I didn't really know how to teach, so I thought I did. But in terms of, you know, just the general basics, you know, how to have the kids put up their chairs instead of you having to do it, waste, you know, 5 of your minutes, and just that kind of stuff there. I think that took me, you know, I don't know, 2 months or something. I kind of wished I'd have known that stuff before I'd started, and for some reason I didn't. You know, when I did my student teaching, I guess the student or the teacher took care of it. I never noticed or something. I kind of wished I'd have known that.
I would say know right off the bat who the most important people in the school are. One, the students, but two, the secretary of the school and the custodian of the school. They can be your best friends because you're going to need them, and they're very important people.
All right, last question. Miss Kayla, give us a question to end on.
I'm not really sure what was asked at the very beginning, but I want to know, do y'all like what's your favorite type of student? Like, do any general type make it easier to teach or a lot harder, or I don't know.
That's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, the ones that do everything you ask them to do are, of course, the easiest. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't be afraid to answer that one. Ones like you, Robbins. There we go. How about that?
The kid that actually wants to learn is the easiest type of teacher to teach or kid to teach. You know, the youngster that's there that actually wants to learn. I mean, the toughest kids to teach are the ones that don't care. You know, the ones that actually don't even care if they even pass or not. Drives me crazy. Still does to this day. It irritates the heck out of me. You know, I'll write them from all day long to just get your work done. I mean, it's the reason why, you know, they have a tough time getting teachers in these real tough schools because, you know, you get so many kids that don't care, it just sucks you down and you lose your energy and it wears you out. And, you know, day in and day out, it just drags you down. It drives you crazy. You know, I still personally believe it's the reason why we have so many good teachers here at the charter school. Because we've got better kids. The kids actually want to learn. And, you know, we come to school a lot happier. You get a good energy going. And if you're in the classroom where a lot of kids don't want to learn, you know, it'll wear you out, you know. And then you get teachers that have a bad attitude, then they're not doing their work, and it just turns into a nightmare. I mean, I take on it.
And a lot of what Mr. McWilliams is saying is a whole lot like parenting. Like, you know, we're trying to tell you what's in front of you, what your options are, and things like that. But sometimes teenagers, they want to buck the system, you know, and they don't always believe what you tell them. So I mean, teaching is a lot like parenting. It's just instead of having 1 or 2 kids, you got, you know, about 120 or so.
I would, you know, you asked a really good question about what would be our I guess our best student or our ideal student to teach. You know, and again, I agree with Mr. Green. That's a loaded question. But I want to just kind of segue onto this because I think this is something that, at least as a beginning teacher, I didn't expect was how I could have the greatest student ever in my class, but they would have the craziest parents on the planet. So I think something that maybe you maybe haven't thought about is, you know, just to prepare you for having parents that no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to please them. The fact that you're trying to hold their kid accountable, the fact that you're trying to go above and beyond to make sure their kid does the work, you know, that's something I want to prepare you for. And I think your best weapon to not necessarily combat that, but to be able to allow that to work smoothly is just communicate with parents on a regular basis. 99% of the time, you know, if you're communicating with them, they'll, you know, I think things will go better. Now you're always going to have that 1% that no matter how much you communicate, it's never good enough. You know, because some parents think their kids never lie, you know, and, you know, something 40 years ago, you know, parents would always back the teacher. It's not like that now. Okay. And I'm not telling you this to discourage you. I'm telling you this to prepare you, because every person here that's taught for 1 second or 50 years knows what I'm talking about. Okay. You know, what your expectations are and what you've done in class, but the kid goes home and tells a different picture. Well, you know, the parent's more likely going to believe the kid. So, you know, just be ready for that. And like I said, over communicate if you have to, but do everything you can. Miss Catherwood brought up a great point about relationships with students, building that relationship, build it with your parents, because whether or not you have it with the student, if you'll build it with the parent, you're probably gonna be okay more times than not. So that's just more of a heads up than anything else.
Okay, I just want to make sure that nobody else want to jump in before I wrapped up. All right, so I'm sorry. I know I ended up taking up more of your time than what I had originally planned. but I know that I appreciate it. I know that these guys appreciate you. And like I said, we were excited talking about it Friday, and I didn't tell them who was coming, so it was very much a surprise for them. And thank you for your words of wisdom. Thank you for your time. Cadets, if you'll stay on for just one more minute, but I want to let these wonderful educators and administrators go and enjoy the rest of their Monday. So thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yep.
All right, it is Miss Walker's favorite student. Hello, everyone.
Okay, all right, cadets, let's talk for just a minute about some stuff that we got coming up this week. So like I said, we are having to regroup and just kind of back up and punt, which is kind of what I told you September was going to be like, not knowing exactly what's coming. So I'm definitely going to be on pins and needles waiting to see what decision is made for us going forward, because of course the decision that's made will directly affect what we do going forward as far as observations and field experience. So I don't know if they will immediately release information after the board meeting, if they're going to wait till tomorrow, I don't know. But I'm sure that we'll probably find out about the same time. And as soon as we know, then we can make steps going forward for whether we're going with plan A, B, or C with observations and field experience. So I know the original September calendar says elementary school observation. Obviously, you know that that is not happening this week. If we're still able to do it, I will push it back, probably push all observations back by 2 weeks. Because I definitely don't want us spending time out of the classroom with our first week face-to-face. So, excuse me. So anyway, just know that that change is happening for this week. There are no observations that will happen this week or next. And if we are able to reschedule, I will let you know. And whenever we meet, Zoom meet on Wednesday is when we'll discuss going forward with the next couple of weeks, plus what everything else is probably going to look like. And we'll discuss changes and all that fun stuff.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so whenever y'all do your like field experience, whenever that ends up happening, I thought for certain I wanted middle school, and I still kind of do, but like, see how it was last semester, it got cut off. My teacher, or the teacher I was supposed to be working with, she didn't know how to have a teacher cadet while it was all online, which shouldn't be a problem with y'all because all the teachers are like online now. But like, you might end up wanting to change it. So I'm just saying, maybe whenever you go into your grade, it might not be what you thought you wanted in the first place. Since we've been coming in with all these little kids and whatnot, I realized I really like hanging out with these little kids. They all really like me, you know? So I'm just saying, whatever you go into, it might end up being something like completely different in the future. So if you do Teacher Cadet 2 next semester or year or whatever, it might you might need to try out a different grade. So don't think the grade you go into is the grade you have to do for like Teacher Cadet 2 and everything too.
Yeah, good words of wisdom. All right, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? I know my time's about to run off and it's about to kick us all off of here. No, okay. All right, so like I said, don't worry about tomorrow's elementary observation. Obviously, we're not doing it. I am gonna see about working on a plan B, and maybe I can set up maybe like a virtual tour. I don't know, I gotta work on that, so no promises on that quite yet. But we're gonna Zoom on Wednesday. Please try and be there if at all possible Wednesday for us to talk about changes and what's coming up after this week. All right, happy Monday. Bye, guys.